Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So I want to talk about the Pacers and go over a little bit more of everything with the team. This video is going to be painted more of with a broad stroke brush rather than just singling out any one person or any of that. So actually, I can't say that because I am going to give some criticism to a player that I never really talk about, but I'm not going to go too hard. It's just things. We're in a very interesting point right now with the Indiana Pacers. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets last night, and a lot of people were like, this is not a team we should be losing to, and I would agree. It feels like same old Pacers. Like I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like it feels like same old Pacers. Because we have been that team that can beat all the good teams, but can't beat the fucking bad teams. This has been a thing since Nate McMillan was our head coach. And I'm starting to think I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's Miles Turner. I don't know if it's the front office. I don't know if it's the culture or what. But for whatever reason, against bad teams, we seem to just take our foot off the gas. I don't understand why. But after the game last night, a lot of people were kind of pissed, and understandably so. We just traded for Pascal Siakam. We shot like shit in this game. And really, I'm going to call it what it is. Charlotte is a good defensive team. I'm not acting like Charlotte's like a horrible basketball team. I honestly think they're better than their record actually reflects. LaMelo Ball hasn't played a lot for them. Mark Williams has been injured. Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges look like they're the duo of the future for this team, even though, for whatever reason, Charlotte keeps trying to trade Miles Bridges. I understand why they're trying to trade him, but he's such a good player that I'm just like, I don't know why you would try to get rid of him. Like, just suck it the fuck up, keep him on the fucking team, because if they get rid of him, they're going to regret it. But that's not why we're here. Last night after the game, after they lost to the Charlotte Hornets, Tony East, I'm sure all of you know who Tony East is. He runs a Pacers podcast. I think he runs Locked On Pacers. I could be wrong, but he put out a tweet saying 5 NBA teams: Detroit, Charlotte, Portland, Washington, and San Antonio have a win percentage below 30% this season. The Pacers lead the NBA in losses against that group with 5. I believe we lost to Charlotte twice, Portland twice. Charlotte twice, Portland once, Washington once, and I think Detroit once. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me. It says 5 teams that have 4 losses to that group, or 4 of them have become teams themselves. The Blazers, Hornets, Spurs also. Oh, okay, so this is just saying that other teams have losses against them as well. But we lead the NBA in losses against that specific group with 5. And even though I don't agree very much with Young Messiah or Young Simba or whatever his name is, just because we have completely different views on Miles Turner. He thinks Miles Turner's great. I think Miles Turner is just incredibly fucking mid. That's my opinion on Miles Turner. But he put out a 3-minute rant last night that, even though I may disagree with him about Miles Turner, it was absolutely he hit the nail on the head. I'm just going to call it what it is. He hit the nail on the head. Now, I want to thank the guys in the Discord chat, or Discord server for putting all this stuff in there, because I wasn't going to go look it up. I don't spend a lot of time on Twitter looking at those things. Unfortunately for Twitter, all I ever fucking see is politics. But he did put out a rant saying that, if we win 4 of those 5 games, we're the 2 seed in the East. And it's fucking wild because it's true. New York plays well against bad teams. He highlighted the idea that the Pacers play solid against good teams. I think we're 16-15 against teams above 500, but against teams below 500, we're like 16-5 or some shit like that. We simply just don't play well against bad teams, and we take our foot off the gas. We like all the teams in the East, like Orlando, New York, even Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't play well against good teams, but they beat the fucking piss out of all the bad teams. And that's what separates us from everybody else. It's been what separates us from everybody else for the past 5, 6, 7 years now. Okay? It's just the idea that we play okay against the good teams, but we can't beat the fucking bad teams. And I haven't been getting on Ben Mathurin really at all, but Ben Mathurin's last 5 games have been fucking terrible. And as a Pacers fan, I don't want to get into Ben Mathurin too much. I'm not going to get in his ass too much because he's a second-year player, and generally rookies don't play well their second year. They just don't. I'm not sure why, but Chris Duarte went through a second-year slump. Scotty Barnes went through a second-year slump. Jabari Smith had a shitty rookie year and is having a good second year. But usually you don't know who rookies are. Most rookies, you don't know who they are until year 3. And during year 3 is when you see what you got, essentially. Is this guy going to pan out? Is he going to be the guy we think he is? Or is he going to be a fucking bust? And with Ben Mathurin right now, I would say Ben Mathurin is on the hot seat. I mean, we traded Buddy Hield to free up minutes for him. And, get him more minutes, get the ball in his hands more often. It's just the idea. Ben Mathurin's a knucklehead. Okay, I think we can all acknowledge that. Ben Mathurin is hard-headed. He's a fierce competitor. I like that about him. But he does sometimes a lot of really, boneheaded shit. And, he'll go to the basket and try to score on 3 guys, or he'll take a contested jumper rather than pass it to the open man in the corner for the open 3. There was a game last week where I was watching them play, and the whole team moves the ball, and the ball stops at Ben Mathurin. For whatever reason, the ball always stops at Ben Mathurin. And while I understand, he's trying to be that guy that we need, and I know he's dedicated to doing that, but sometimes, right, and I understand rookies, second-year players, maybe not the most, aware offensive players or defensive players, but Ben Mathurin needs to understand that you don't need to shoot the ball every time you touch it. You know what I'm saying? Ben Mathurin is a good player. I think he has the potential to be really good. But it's coming off as if he's in Rick's doghouse again. And the reason I say that is because he only played 14 minutes last night. He shot 0 of 4. And, at some point, right? I watch the Pacers games, and I watch Ben Mathurin play, and it's he gets removed from games, and I understand why. There are times where it's I'll watch him, and I'm dude, you got a guy open. Why are you taking that jumper? Why are you he forces his offense, and I get that he's trying to, develop and be the guy we need him to be, but Ben Mathurin's a guy that really needs to let the offense come to him. He's a guy that, isn't the greatest defender. He's not the greatest at creating shots off the dribble. Honestly, he reminds me of a guy who's capable of shooting threes. He's capable of finishing, but his decision making is, lackluster at times. And I really don't want to get on him too much, because Andrew Nembhard has the same problem. I'm going to call it what it is. Andrew Nembhard has the same problem. Andrew Nembhard, when he had to start for Tyrese Halliburton, there are times when we're closing games and Andrew Nembhard's going to the basket on 3 fucking people. I'm dude, Andrew Nembhard is a solid player. We saw in his rookie year, he's going through the same shit Ben Mathurin is. He's going through a sophomore slump. But I watch Andrew Nembhard play, and I'm bro, you're not that guy. If you're on the floor with Siakam, if you're on the floor with even who else was Aaron Nesmith, if you're on the floor with these guys, Jalen Smith, right? If you're on the floor with them, let them do it. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're on the floor with Siakam. I'm sorry, there's zero reason why to close out games our rookies should be the ones out there, trying to seal the deal when we got Pascal Siakam out there. Okay? He's a max contract player. There's zero reason why closing out these games, unless Pascal Siakam is injured, the order of closing out games should be Tyrese, Siakam, and Ben Mathurin. Okay? Like, those are the three guys that I trust the most. There's zero reason Andrew Nembhard should be going to the basket on three guys and then, like, every time down the fucking floor, doing it again. There's zero reason Andrew Nembhard should be closing out games and, like, trying to play hero ball. But it's just the idea. I get it. It's a team game, and I understand we still have a little time, people getting used to things. We just traded for Doug McDermott. We Pascal Siakam's only played only a handful of games for the Pacers so far since we traded for him. The fit has been a little bit better than I expected it to be, but they're still figuring things out. Tyrese Halliburton said it the other day that, they're still figuring out their end of game sets and all this other shit that's still going on with the team. But I would agree, like, two things that are going to be self-evident towards the end of this season are beating bad teams is going to determine where we are in the playoffs. And, Young Simba or Messiah or whatever the fuck his name is said in his rant, okay, this team needs to beat bad teams. And if they win just 4 of those 5 games that they lost, we're the number 2 seed in the East. So this team not winning against bad teams is hurting its playoff seeding. I think it's hurting our chances to even be in the fucking playoffs. Like right now, you've got the 76ers who don't have Joel Embiid anymore, right? Like, the Chicago Bulls are a fucking mess, okay? The Brooklyn Nets are another team that we should probably be beating now. They got rid of Spencer Dinwiddie, they got rid of Royce O'Neal. They're not exactly a team that got better, Like, there are certain teams that we should be beating, and if we're not able to beat them, we're looking at maybe potentially a first round exit. And I know we don't want that. I know I don't want that. But, like I said, like Young Simba or whatever his name is, said it correctly. If we win 4 of those 5 games that we lost to those below 30 win, like those 30 win percentage teams, if we win just 4 of those 5 games, this is a 50 win team. So it's just the idea, like, this team has the ability to be very good. I still think we need some more pieces. The bench played like shit last night. They played uncharacteristically. Usually our bench is the best in the league. The idea that, against the Hornets last night, we couldn't get it done. I get it. Those nights happen. But it's just the idea, you can't have those nights against teams like Charlotte. You just can't. You can't. We got Toronto and then Detroit left until the All-Star break. We cannot lose those games. Okay? Especially against Detroit. Okay? Detroit got worse. Detroit lost Bogdanovich and Alec Burks. They took on Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, okay, and a bunch of guys and draft picks, like guys that are probably never going to really see the floor, right? We have to beat Toronto and Detroit the next 2 games going into the All-Star break. We have to go into the All-Star break with some fucking momentum, okay? And, the idea that we keep dropping games to bad teams, and Toronto is not going to be an easy out. Okay, Toronto is a solid team. Detroit is a team that we should be beating every fucking time. Okay, like, they're a team that fucks up more things than they get right. So I'm just saying, man, like, we simply cannot drop those 2 games. Like, teams that are projected to be tanking, teams that have, below 50% win percentages, those are not teams we should be losing to. Or at least not most of them anyway. Toronto's going to be a little harder than Detroit, but it's just the idea, these next 2 games we need to win. And the more the season goes on, I would argue the more the season goes on, the more Ben Mathurin's going to be on the hot seat. As much as I hate to say that, like, I really have a feeling they're only going to put up with 1 more season of Ben Mathurin playing like this. Like, yeah, his rookie year was good. His second year has been average, painfully average. But if Ben Mathurin doesn't develop a whole lot in this second half of the season, now that we got rid of Buddy Hield, okay, if Ben Mathurin doesn't make some significant strides, and, even next season, if he doesn't start the season off hot and shows us that he's improved, he could find himself being traded. And I really don't want that because I think he's a good player. But, this team is in win now mode, You either get right or you get left. And, it's looking right now like the Pacers could, sign Ben Mathurin to an extension and then try to trade him for somebody. So, I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see. But next year, okay, Ben Mathurin becomes extension eligible. And I really, really don't want to see us get rid of Ben Mathurin because Ben Mathurin hasn't really matured as a player. And I think that's what it is mostly. I think it's the idea that he hasn't matured as a player. I understand, at Arizona, he was, the guy, but this is the NBA. And, once you get into the NBA, when you're playing with people that are on that level, you kind of got to let your offense come to you for a while. And then once you start getting better at things, once you start being able to create, because he's really not the greatest ball handler in the world either, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be polished. But if he can do that in the offseason and through training camp, and he's really going to have to work his ass off this offseason. But I don't want to count him out. I don't want to write him off because Scotty Barnes didn't have a good sophomore year. He had a damn good rookie year. Second year was not that good, and now his third year, he's an all-star reserve. I think Scotty Barnes is in the all-star. He's one of the all-star reserves this year. So, Ben Mathurin could be an all-star by year 3 if he just shores up some of the things in his game that are not polished. And by then, at that point, if Ben Mathurin does make those changes, we could be a serious threat in the East, with or without Paul George, okay? People love to piss at my Cheerios about Paul George, but I'm excited. I was a huge Paul George fan. But there's a lot going on here that needs to be fixed. And it's very obvious at the current point in time. The idea that Mathurin only got 14 minutes last night tells me that Rick is tired of his shit. I'm just going to call it what it is. The idea that Ben only got 14 minutes last night against Charlotte tells me that Rick is tired of Ben playing selfish ball. And every time Rick talks about selfish basketball, I think he's talking about Ben Mathurin. I assume he's talking about Ben Mathurin because Ben Mathurin's the one guy on the team where every time he touches the fucking ball, it seems like it's go time, and it doesn't need to be go time. Okay, sometimes you need to pass the ball to someone else and let someone else do the dirty work. But it's admirable that Ben Mathurin's at least trying to improve. He's trying to show us that he can be that guy because he knows he can be that guy. And I appreciate that a lot as a Pacers fan, but, he's not there yet. You know what I'm saying? And so long as he's not there yet, I don't think he should force it. So, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report. And I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.